The moment I saw him again, I knew my life was about to shatter. Ethan Harper, the man who once shattered my heart, stood there, looking at me with that damn smirk. "You're pregnant," he said, his voice low, like it meant nothing. My heart stopped. I should have turned away, walked out, and never looked back. But something about his gaze, cold, calculating, yet impossibly familiar, made my feet freeze. "I'm not doing this," I snapped, my voice shaky. "You left me once, and you're not doing this to me again." But he stepped closer, his presence suffocating. "You have no choice," he said, his tone hard as stone. I wanted to scream, to slap him, to push him away. But instead, I felt a chill run down my spine. He wasn't just the man I could never forgive. He was the one who had control over my future now. My body tensed as his hand brushed mine, too familiar, too intimate. "You're not alone anymore," he said. But I knew better. He wasn't back because he cared. He was here because he wanted to claim me, to fix the mess he'd left behind. And yet, even after all the pain, I felt a part of me willing to listen, to consider. Was I weak? Or was it something more? Just then, a wave of nausea hit me. I had to get out. But before I could take a step, he grabbed my wrist. "You're not going anywhere." His words wrapped around me, tightening like a trap. This wasn't just about a baby anymore. This was about him taking back what he thought he could control. And for the first time, I wondered if I could ever escape the mess he'd left behind. Was this really the beginning of our second chance, or was I just falling into his trap again? The moment he grabbed my wrist, I froze. The air between us thickened, charged with the weight of everything unsaid. "You're not going anywhere," he repeated, his voice colder than it had ever been before. I tried to pull my arm away, but his grip was firm, unyielding. "I don't need your help," I spat, my pulse racing. I could feel his eyes on me, sharp, unreadable. But there was something behind that gaze, something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't just the man who left me behind. It was the man who wanted to control me again. "You're pregnant with my child. This changes everything," he said, his words biting. My stomach churned, not from the pregnancy but from the way he said it, like I was just another part of his life to fix. I yanked my wrist free, taking a step back. "I don't owe you anything, Ethan. I don't need your help, and I certainly don't need you in my life." He didn't move, just watched me, as if I were the one who didn't matter. "You'll have to deal with this somehow. I'm not leaving you alone." The words hit me harder than I expected. He was right, I couldn't do this alone. I knew that. But I couldn't admit it. Not to him. Not to anyone. I turned away, my heart pounding in my chest. He stepped closer, his presence suffocating. "I'm not here to control you, Emma. I'm here because we have to figure this out. For both of us." His words were a lifeline, but they felt like a trap. I opened my mouth to tell him off, but nothing came out. I was too angry. Too scared. "Don't make this harder than it already is," he added, his voice softening for just a second. I could barely look at him. Just when I thought he was about to leave, he dropped the bomb. "We need to talk to my family." The last words he said echoed in my mind. My family? Was he seriously dragging me back into his world again? I couldn't believe what he was asking. And yet, something inside me couldn't say no. Last night, I couldn't sleep. The moment Ethan mentioned his family, it all hit me. I couldn't just ignore him anymore. I had to face this. The possibility of being dragged back into his world terrified me. But the reality of being pregnant, alone, was worse. So here I was, walking into his world once again. His mansion loomed ahead, and I could feel the weight of what was about to happen. "You wanted to talk to my family, remember?" Ethan said, his voice an inch away from breaking through my resolve. He was walking beside me, his presence swallowing up all the air around me. I nodded, trying to ignore the sudden surge of panic in my chest. His family. The people who had always expected perfection from him. And here I was, a mess of emotions, with a child no one planned for. As we entered, I could already hear voices coming from the living room. I hesitated at the door. Emma, Ethan's voice was soft but firm. It's going to be okay. You don't have to be scared. I looked at him, not trusting the words. Nothing about this felt okay. He opened the door, and all eyes turned to me. I felt the heat rise to my face. This is Emma, Ethan introduced me. She's carrying my child. The room fell silent. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. They stared at me like I was a stranger, like I didn't belong. The tension in the air was unbearable. Then, Ethan's mother spoke. We need to talk about your future, Emma. The words hit me like a blow. A future? With him? I couldn't even process the thought. I forced myself to meet her gaze. What was I supposed to say? The silence in the room was deafening. Ethan's mother had just spoken, and everyone's gaze was fixed on me. I stood there, trying to hold it together, but the weight of their eyes made my stomach twist. We need to talk about your future, Emma. The words hit me like a slap in the face. My future? With Ethan? The idea was impossible. I couldn't stay in his world. Not after everything that had happened. I felt Ethan's presence beside me, strong and unwavering, but I couldn't lean on him, not now. We don't have to do this, I said, my voice shaky. I don't belong here. Ethan's hand brushed against my back, and I stiffened. You do now. You're carrying my child. This is part of the deal, he said, his voice firm, almost as if he were trying to convince himself. His mother's eyes narrowed. The deal? What deal, exactly? She asked, her tone sharp. I looked at her, trying to find words. I couldn't. This wasn't just about the baby anymore. This was about everything I feared, losing myself in this world that didn't want me. We don't need your approval, Ethan said, his jaw clenched. This is happening, whether you like it or not. His mother turned her gaze toward me, and for a moment, I felt like a piece of property, something to be traded or controlled. You think you can just walk in here and claim everything? This family doesn't work like that, she sneered. My heart raced, but I held my ground. I didn't ask for any of this, I said, my voice low but steady. But I'm not backing down. Ethan's hand tightened on my shoulder, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't completely alone. But as his mother's stare grew colder, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. And the real fight was only starting. The tension at Ethan's house still hung in the air as we sat in the living room. His mother hadn't stopped glaring at me since I walked in, but now, it was just Ethan and me. We need to talk about the baby, he said, his voice quieter, more controlled. But I could feel the pressure building behind his words. I hated the way he was acting, like he had the right to tell me what to do with my life. I told you before, I'm not doing this with you, I said, standing up, ready to leave. You left me, Ethan. I'm not some kind of backup plan you can just pick up when it's convenient for you. He stood up quickly, blocking my way. This isn't about me, Emma. This is about our child, he said, his eyes burning with something I couldn't quite place. My heart raced, and for a second, I saw the Ethan I once loved, the one who wasn't afraid to fight for what he wanted. But that was then, and this was now. You think I'm going to just let you walk in and take over? I snapped. I'm not some damsel in distress, and I don't need saving. He didn't move, just stood there, his face tight with frustration. I never meant to hurt you, Emma. I didn't know what to do. But this time, I'm not leaving you alone. I'm not giving up on you again. I could feel my anger starting to waver, but I fought it back. This isn't about what you want. This is about what I want. His jaw clenched, and I saw the battle in his eyes. He wanted to make things right, but we were too broken for that. And what do you want, Emma? His voice was soft now, almost vulnerable. I wanted to scream that I wanted him out of my life, that I didn't need him, but something in me hesitated. Before I could answer, his mother's voice interrupted, sharp as a knife. Don't be a fool, Ethan. She's not the one. You'll regret this. The words hit me like a punch. I turned to face her, but Ethan's hand was on my arm, stopping me. We'll talk about this later, he said, his voice no longer firm but tired. I looked at him, confused. What do you mean, later? He didn't respond, just led me toward the door. We're not done yet, he said under his breath, and I felt my heart skip a beat. Was I really ready to let him back in? The next few days felt like a blur, but the pressure didn't stop. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's face, the man who once broke my heart, now standing there, acting like nothing had ever happened. I hated him for it. But I also couldn't deny the pull between us, even if I wanted to. I wasn't ready for any of this. The pregnancy, the reunion, and especially not Ethan's insistence that we work things out. He'd been trying to reach me nonstop. And I kept avoiding his calls, his texts, everything. But then I found myself outside his office one afternoon. I hadn't planned to be here. I didn't want to face him, but something inside me knew I couldn't keep running. I walked in, and the first thing I saw was him, standing there, staring at me like he knew exactly what I was thinking. Emma, he said, his voice steady, but his eyes betrayed a storm beneath. We need to talk. I crossed my arms, trying to hold on to my anger, trying to stop my heart from betraying me again. Talk about what, Ethan? About how you ruined my life and now expect me to just accept you back. My voice was shaky, but I refused to let him see how much his presence still affected me. No, he said, stepping closer, the tension between us thickening. Talk about our future. The baby's future. I flinched at the mention of the baby. It hit me hard. This wasn't just about us anymore. I didn't ask for this, Ethan, I said, my voice barely a whisper. But it wasn't true. I didn't ask for this, but I was already too deep. You don't have to do it alone, he said quietly, taking a step forward. I wanted to pull away, but his words, his sincerity, trapped me. I looked at him, and for the first time, I wondered, could we really make this work? I wasn't sure. But before I could say anything, he reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder. We're in this together, Emma. His touch sent a jolt through me, and for a moment, I forgot everything. Just for a moment. But then reality hit. I stepped back, looking at him with confusion and fear. You don't get to fix this with a touch, Ethan, I said, my voice cold. He stared at me for a long moment before speaking again. Then how do we fix this? He looked at me like he was ready for anything. But I wasn't ready for this. Not yet. I don't know, I said softly, before turning to walk away. But the question lingered. How would we fix this? The air between Ethan and me was thick with unspoken words. After everything that had happened, I still couldn't wrap my head around what he was asking. We need to get along for the baby, Emma, he said, his voice as calm as ever, but his eyes were urgent. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to help me make this right. I wanted to scream, to push him away, but I couldn't. I couldn't deny the part of me that still cared. It was dangerous. It was foolish. But it was real. I'm not here for you, Ethan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm here because of this. I placed my hand over my stomach, feeling the weight of the life growing inside me. He looked at me with those damn eyes, like he was begging for something, anything, from me. I know, he said quietly. But you're not alone in this. His words were so sincere, so full of meaning. It tore me apart. I wanted to walk away, but I knew I couldn't. He reached out, just a hand on my arm, a touch that sent a shock through me. Let me help, he whispered. And for a moment, I wanted to let him. I wanted to believe that he could fix things. But then reality slammed back in. You don't get to fix this, I said. sharply, pulling away. You broke me, Ethan. You can't just walk back into my life and expect everything to be fine. I took a step back, shaking my head. You think I'm going to let you back in after everything you did? He didn't answer. He just looked at me, his jaw clenched. And I realized something. He wasn't going anywhere. Not until this was sorted. Not until he made sure I wasn't going to fall apart without him. But what if that's exactly what he wanted? I couldn't trust him. And yet, I wasn't sure I could do this without him. It had been days since Ethan last asked me to talk, and I couldn't escape it. The tension between us was unbearable. I didn't want to need him, but somehow, I did. I was sitting at home, alone, staring at my phone when it rang. Ethan. I almost didn't answer, but my hand moved on its own, swiping the screen to accept the call. Emma, we need to figure this out, his voice came through, steady and persistent. I'm trying to help, but you're shutting me out. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to yell at him, tell him he had no right to demand anything from me, but I swallowed the words. I'm not shutting you out, Ethan. I'm just trying to get through this on my own. I couldn't even convince myself. I wasn't strong enough. You're not alone, Emma, he said, almost gently. You never were. His words hung in the air between us, a reminder of everything we had been, and everything we had lost. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the silence settle. Then, I spoke. I don't want your pity. I don't need your help, not like this. I heard him exhale sharply. This isn't pity, Emma. This is responsibility. This is about the baby. About us. About the future. He wasn't giving up, and I could feel it. The weight of his words crushed me. But I couldn't let him win. Not like this. I won't let you control me, Ethan. I'm doing this my way, I said, my voice sharp, even though my heart was faltering. We'll see about that, he replied, his voice colder now. But you can't hide from this forever. You can't keep pushing me away. The line went silent, and I stood there, trembling, realizing how much I was lying to myself. I wasn't ready for this, but neither was I ready to lose him again. The question lingered, could I let him back in, or was I too scared to try? It had been a week since Ethan's call, and the tension between us had only grown. I couldn't shake the weight of his words, his insistence that we work things out. I wanted to tell him to leave me alone, but I couldn't. Not with everything that was at stake. Today, I was standing in his office, waiting. He had asked me to come, to talk, but I wasn't sure I was ready to face him. The door opened, and there he was. His presence filled the room, strong and undeniable. Emma, he said, his voice soft but urgent. We need to talk. I looked at him, heart pounding. About what, Ethan? We've talked enough. His eyes softened. No, we haven't. Not about what really matters. He stepped closer, and for a moment, I could almost forget everything that had happened. But then, reality came rushing back. I don't want to do this with you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm not ready to open that door again. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. You can't just expect everything to go back to normal. You left me, Ethan. I can't just forget that. His face darkened, and for a second, I saw the old Ethan, the one who would do anything to get what he wanted. I'm not asking you to forget, he said, his voice tight. But we can't keep running from this. From what we've built. From the baby. The mention of the baby hit me hard. I had to focus on that, on what was best for the child. I don't want to need you, but I do, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. He paused, his gaze searching mine. Then let me help. Let me be there. I felt my resolve cracking, but I pushed it away. I can do this alone, I said, but the words felt hollow. Ethan didn't respond, just stood there, waiting. I didn't know what was worse, the idea of letting him in, or the fear of facing everything alone. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. This isn't over, Emma. The finality in his words echoed in the room, and as I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into something I wasn't ready for. The phone call from Ethan earlier today had rattled me. I hadn't heard from him in days, and now he wanted to meet. There was no way I could ignore him any longer, not with everything hanging between us. As I walked into the cafe where he had asked me to meet, I felt my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to be here, but I couldn't stay away. He was already sitting at a corner table, his eyes scanning the room. When he saw me, he stood up, and for a moment, I almost wanted to turn around and walk out. But I stayed. I couldn't keep running. Emma, he said, his voice low and tense. Thank you for coming. I sat down across from him, trying not to show how badly I was shaking. You wanted to talk? I said, my tone colder than I felt. He nodded, his gaze never leaving mine. I know I've messed things up between us. But I'm not going anywhere, Emma. I'm not leaving this time. His words sent a wave of emotions crashing through me, anger, fear, longing. You can't just fix things with words, Ethan. You left me once, and now you think you can just come back and everything will be fine? My voice shook as I spoke, the hurt I had buried for so long surfacing once again. He reached across the table, his hand hovering over mine. I never stopped loving you, he said softly, his voice filled with an intensity that made my heart skip a beat. I pulled my hand back, not ready to let him in. I'm not doing this, Ethan. I don't need you, not like this. His face tightened, but he didn't pull away. You don't have to need me, Emma. But you have to know that I'm here for you. I'm here for us. I stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a message. My heart stopped when I saw the name, Mom. I opened the message quickly, my stomach twisting. The text was short, I need to talk to you. It's about the baby. Ethan's eyes narrowed as he saw my expression. What's wrong? He asked. My heart raced. What did she know? What was I walking into? The text from my mom sat on my screen, its message haunting me. I need to talk to you. It's about the baby. My stomach dropped as I stared at the words, panic rising within me. Ethan's gaze was piercing, his hand still hovering above mine as he waited for me to respond. I could feel his breath on my skin, but it felt miles away. What's going on, Emma? He asked, his voice laced with concern. I could tell he saw my distress, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. Not yet. It's nothing, I said, forcing a smile I didn't feel. Just something I need to handle. But the unease gnawed at me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something far worse. Ethan didn't buy it. You don't have to hide anything from me. Not anymore. His words softened, his hand moving closer to mine. I pulled back slightly, afraid that if I let him too close, he'd unravel me completely. I don't want to deal with this right now, I muttered, my voice trembling. Ethan reached for my hand, but I stepped back, refusing to let him in. It's about the baby, isn't it? He said, his voice lower now, more cautious. I didn't answer, and that was all it took for him to understand. He exhaled sharply, standing up. Emma, you can't keep pushing me away. Not with everything we've got at stake. I wanted to scream at him, tell him that he didn't understand, but I was too afraid to face the truth. I have to go, I said, backing away slowly. I need space. Ethan watched me with a mixture of frustration and concern, but I didn't care. I had to get out of there before everything collapsed. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my mom. We need to talk. It's urgent. My heart stopped. What was she hiding? My heart raced as I walked into my mother's house, the air heavy with the unspoken tension. Ethan's words still echoed in my mind, *, you can't keep pushing me away. But I had to. I couldn't let him back in. Not after everything. Not after the way he had left me. I had to protect myself. But as I opened the door, my mother was standing there, her face grim. "Emma, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight with something I couldn't read. My stomach churned. "About what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though I could feel the panic rising in my chest. She motioned for me to sit, and I did, my body instinctively tensing. "It's about the baby," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed hard, my breath caught in my throat. "What about the baby?" I managed, my voice trembling. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she sat beside me, her eyes filled with something I didn't recognize, guilt, maybe, or fear. "You're not the only one involved in this, Emma. There's more to the situation than you think." I stared at her, waiting for her to continue. "What do you mean?" My mind raced with all the possible things she could be talking about. Was this about Ethan? About his family? My mother shook her head, then looked at me with a look of almost regret. "I should have told you sooner, but..." She trailed off, then met my eyes. "The baby, there's something you need to know. It's not just yours and Ethan's." My world stopped. I could barely breathe. "What do you mean it's not just ours?" I whispered, my voice barely a sound. She paused again, as if deciding whether to say more. "It's complicated, Emma. And you're not going to like what I have to tell you." My heart hammered in my chest, my hands shaking. What was she hiding? What had she kept from me? The words hung in the air, suffocating me. "It's not just yours and Ethan's," my mother repeated, her voice shaking slightly. I was barely holding it together, my mind spinning. "What do you mean?" I barely managed to ask, my voice cracking. She hesitated, looking at me like she was about to drop the weight of the world on me. "There's someone else involved," she said softly, almost a whisper. The words didn't make sense. "Someone else? What do you mean?" My pulse quickened, a knot forming in my stomach. "I didn't want to tell you this way," she continued, looking pained. "But the truth is, the baby's father isn't just Ethan." My breath caught in my throat. "What?" I whispered, struggling to process her words. "I'm sorry, Emma," she said, her eyes full of regret. "There's someone else, someone you don't know about." My chest tightened as I tried to understand. "Who else?" I managed to force out, my voice trembling. She looked away for a moment, then met my eyes. "It's someone from Ethan's past. A man he had an affair with, someone he kept secret for a long time." The shock of her words hit me like a physical blow. "Are you telling me that Ethan had an affair? While we were together?" My voice rose, the anger and hurt bubbling up in me. "It's complicated," she said, looking down. "But Ethan never told you the whole truth." I stood up, my hands trembling. "This is insane," I muttered, pacing. "I can't believe this. He lied to me. He didn't tell me anything." My heart felt like it was being torn apart all over again. "I have to go," I said, my voice hollow. "I need to figure this out. I need to know the truth." As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I hesitated before pulling it out. It was a message from Ethan. "We need to talk. It's important." The words were like a trap, and I knew, deep down, I was walking straight into it. What was he going to say now? My hands shook as I stared at the message from Ethan. "We need to talk. It's important." The last few days had been a whirlwind of emotions, each one more intense than the last. After what my mother had revealed, I couldn't face him. I didn't know if I could trust anything he said anymore. But I couldn't ignore him forever. I had to know the truth. So, against my better judgment, I found myself standing outside his office, the one place I never wanted to be again. I knocked once, and when I heard him call out, I stepped inside. Ethan looked up from his desk, his eyes softening the moment they landed on me. "Emma," he said, standing up. "Thank you for coming." I nodded, trying to ignore the fluttering in my chest. "Let's get this over with," I said, my voice colder than I felt. "You wanted to talk." Ethan took a step closer, his gaze never leaving mine. "I know things have been messed up between us. And I know I've made a lot of mistakes." His words hit me harder than I expected, but I kept my walls up, refusing to let him in. "You lied to me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You kept things from me, Ethan. Things that I have a right to know." He exhaled sharply, clearly frustrated with himself. "I never meant to hurt you, Emma. I thought I was protecting you." His voice wavered slightly, but I didn't let it move me. "You didn't protect me. You destroyed me." My words were out before I could stop them, the pain rushing to the surface. Ethan's expression softened, and he reached for my hand. "I'm sorry," he said, his grip gentle but firm. "I can't change the past, but I can try to fix this. If you'll let me." I pulled my hand away, shaking my head. "I don't know if I can." I didn't even believe myself when I said it. The truth was, part of me wanted to let him back in. But I didn't know if I could risk it again. "What's going to happen now, Ethan?" I whispered, my heart heavy. And as he opened his mouth to answer, my phone buzzed in my pocket again. Another message. I didn't want to look, but I did. This time, it wasn't from my mom. It was from an unknown number. "You don't know the full truth about the baby." "But I do." My hands trembled as I stared at the message on my phone. The words seemed to burn into the screen. "You don't know the full truth about the baby." "But I do." My heart pounded in my chest, and my breath caught in my throat. Who was this? And what did they mean? I glanced up at Ethan, who was still sitting across from me, waiting for my reaction. His eyes locked onto mine, sensing my unease. "What is it, Emma?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. But I couldn't speak. The words stuck in my throat, the weight of the message pressing down on me. I couldn't bring myself to tell him about it, not yet. Instead, I turned away, pacing the small room as I tried to collect my thoughts. "Emma," Ethan said again, his voice softer this time, "what's going on?" I met his gaze, my mind spinning with questions. I don't know," I said, the words barely a whisper. "I got a message from someone. They know something about the baby, something I don't know." Ethan stood up, moving closer to me. "What do you mean, something you don't know?" His voice was sharp, protective, but I could hear the worry in it too. I could feel the tension building between us. "I don't know who it is. I don't know what they want," I said, shaking my head. "But they said they know the truth." The words echoed in the room, making the air feel thick, suffocating. Ethan stepped forward, his expression hardening. "I won't let anyone play games with you, Emma," he said, his jaw clenched. "We'll find out who this is. I won't let them hurt you." I wanted to believe him, I really did. But I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the truth was going to be more complicated than I could handle. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Ethan," I said, my voice breaking. "Everything's falling apart." Ethan reached out, his hand brushing mine, but I pulled away, the weight of everything too much. "Emma, please," he said urgently. "We can't fall apart now. We have to find out who this is. Together." But as he spoke, I felt a new fear creep in. The truth was closer than I realized, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face it. The tension in the room was suffocating. Ethan stood in front of me, his eyes intense, waiting for me to respond. "You don't need to go through this alone, Emma," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But I couldn't bring myself to let him in. Not now. Not when everything felt like it was unraveling. "I can't just pretend everything's fine," I said, my voice cracking. "You lied to me, Ethan. You kept things from me." His face tightened, but he didn't look away. I didn't lie. I just didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you more. His words were soft, but the weight of them hung heavily in the air. I shook my head, unable to stop the flood of emotions rising inside me. You think I'm just supposed to forget all of this? All the lies? You think we can just go back to how things were? I was trembling. Now, the anger and pain mixing into a storm inside me. Ethan stepped closer, but I backed away. No, I can't go back, Ethan. I can't trust you again. He stopped in his tracks, looking at me like I'd just shattered something inside him. I'm sorry, he said, his voice raw. I don't know how to fix this, but I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. I'm here for you, Emma. For the baby. For us. The words hit me harder than I expected, and for a brief moment, I felt the pull to believe him. But I couldn't. Not after everything. Not after he broke me once. I can't keep doing this, Ethan, I whispered, feeling my heart breaking all over again. I need space. I need to figure this out on my own. His face fell, but he didn't argue. He just nodded, his expression a mix of frustration and resignation. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message from Ethan. It was from my mom. You need to know the truth about the baby. You can't ignore this any longer. My breath caught in my throat. What else was she hiding? The weight of the last message from my mom lingered heavily in the pit of my stomach. You need to know the truth about the baby. You can't ignore this any longer. My mind raced with 1,000 questions. What could she be hiding now? Was it about Ethan? The baby? Something worse? I didn't know if I was ready for whatever bombshell she was about to drop. My phone buzzed again, breaking my thoughts. It was her. I stood in the hallway outside my apartment, the coldness of the tile floor seeping through my shoes, grounding me in a moment that felt too heavy. Without another thought, I opened the message. Meet me. It's urgent. We need to talk. My heart sank. I hesitated for a moment before texting back a quick reply, I'm coming. I couldn't afford to wait anymore. I had to face this, whatever it was. When I arrived at my mom's house, she was sitting at the kitchen table, her hands folded neatly in front of her. She didn't look up as I entered, but I could feel the tension in the air. I walked over, trying to steady my nerves. What's going on? Mom? I asked, my voice quiet. She finally lifted her gaze, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. I wasn't sure how to tell you this, but you deserve to know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I sat down, my body stiff with anticipation. What is it? Just tell me. She paused before speaking, her face filled with a sadness I couldn't understand. The baby, it's not just Ethan's. There's someone else. Someone else who has a claim to this child. My world tilted on its axis. What? I could barely breathe, the shock nearly suffocating me. Who? I whispered, my throat tight. She hesitated, then dropped her bombshell, it's your father. I stared at her, unable to process the words. What do you mean? My voice cracked. How is that possible? The truth hung in the air, unbearable, twisting inside me. I felt the ground beneath me slip away. How was this possible? And more importantly, what did this mean for the future of everything? My mind was reeling. Your father, the words echoed in my head, but they made no sense. How could my father be involved? What did this mean for me, for the baby? I was struggling to process what my mother had just said, but her face, her eyes, told me this wasn't a lie. She was serious. I sat back, my heart pounding, my hands clammy. What do you mean, my father? I managed to croak, trying to keep my voice steady. How could this happen? Why didn't you tell me sooner? My mother's face softened with guilt. I didn't know how to explain it, Emma. It was a mistake, a one-time thing. And when I found out I was pregnant with you, I didn't know who to turn to. It's been haunting me for years. I felt like I was drowning in this new truth. You're telling me this now? I whispered, the weight of her confession crushing me. You let me grow up not knowing the truth about my father? She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I was trying to protect you. I didn't want you to hate me, to hate him. But now, with the baby, I had to tell you. I stood up suddenly, unable to sit still. The room was spinning. I had no idea how to feel. My emotions were a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion. Why didn't Ethan tell me? I asked, my voice shaking. Why is he just as silent as you? Why keep this from me? My mother's silence was all the answer I needed. I could feel the walls closing in. I had to leave. I turned to go, but my mother stopped me. Emma, you need to know one more thing, she said quietly. Ethan's family, they've known. They've always known. I froze, my body going rigid. What did that mean? What was going on? What was Ethan hiding now? The weight of my mother's words felt like a stone pressing against my chest. Ethan's family, they've known. They've always known. My heart skipped a beat, the confusion deepening as I tried to grasp what she was saying. What did she mean, they'd always known? Was this all some kind of game to them? I turned sharply to face her, my voice shaky but demanding, what are you talking about? How could they know and not tell me? Her eyes were filled with an unbearable sadness. It was never just your secret, Emma, she said softly. They've been hiding things from you, protecting their own interests. Your father's involvement with Ethan, it was always meant to stay hidden. I felt like the room was closing in around me. This isn't just about the baby, is it? I whispered, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. It's about everything. Ethan's family's control over our lives. The lies they've been telling all along. My hands were shaking, but I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. Why didn't you tell me, Mom? Why keep this from me? Her silence was all the answer I needed. She was just as trapped as I was. I turned away, desperate to breathe, desperate for space. I needed answers, but the more I dug, the darker it seemed to get. I'm sorry, Emma, my mother said quietly, but I didn't want to hear her apologies. I need to see Ethan, I said, my voice sharp, hard. I need to confront him. This has gone on long enough. My mother's face paled as she reached out for my arm, but I shrugged her off. I had no more time for secrets. It was time for the truth to come out. As I turned to leave, the doorbell rang. I hesitated, feeling the familiar stirrings of dread. When I opened the door, standing in front of me was someone I never expected to see, Ethan's mother. We need to talk, she said, her voice low and filled with warning. My heart sank. What now? The door swung open, and there she was, Ethan's mother, standing in front of me, her eyes hard and calculating. We need to talk, she said, her voice low, almost threatening. My heart skipped a beat. What now? I barely moved, my body frozen at the sudden appearance of the woman I never expected to see. What do you want? I asked, my voice sharp. I wasn't sure I was ready for whatever she had to say, but I knew this had to happen. There were too many secrets swirling around, and I needed to know the truth. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her gaze scanning the room. This isn't just about the baby, Emma, she said, her tone like ice. It's about everything you don't know. I closed the door behind her, the tension mounting with every word. What do you mean, everything I don't know? I asked, my fists clenching. I could feel my anger rising, but I was determined to stay in control. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. There are things you don't understand about Ethan's past. Things he's never told you. Things that affect all of us. I shook my head, confusion mixing with frustration. Why now? Why are you telling me this? I demanded, struggling to keep my composure. She paused, then took a step closer. Because it's time you knew the truth, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan isn't the man you think he is. He's been hiding things, hiding himself. I felt the blood drain from my face. What are you talking about? I whispered, fear creeping into my chest. Her next words hit me like a punch. There's another side to him, Emma. A side he's never shown you. And that side has everything to do with you. I stared at her, barely able to breathe. What did she mean? Ethan had always seemed like the man I thought I knew, but now? Now, I wasn't so sure. What do you mean, everything to do with me? I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't answer right away, but the silence was enough. The truth was coming, but what was it? What was Ethan hiding now? The silence in the room was deafening. Ethan's mother had just dropped a bombshell, and I could barely catch my breath. There's another side to him, Emma. A side he's never shown you. And that side has everything to do with you. Her words echoed in my head, making it impossible to focus on anything else. What did she mean? Was Ethan hiding something even darker? The man I thought I knew was now a stranger, and I had no idea how to navigate this new reality. What are you talking about? I asked again, my voice shaking. Ethan's mother took a step closer, her face unreadable. I'm not the one who should be telling you this, she said softly, almost regretfully. But you deserve to know. Ethan isn't the innocent man you think he is. He's been keeping things from you. Secrets that could destroy everything you're building together. My chest tightened. What kind of secrets? I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. She hesitated, then finally spoke. He's been involved in things. Dangerous things. Things that, if you knew, would make you reconsider everything. I could feel my legs shaking, but I stood still, forcing myself to listen. He's in deeper than you think, Emma. You need to be careful. Her words were like daggers, cutting through the fragile trust one had left in him. I don't know if I can believe you, I said, my voice cracking. Why are you telling me this now? She looked at me with something close to pity. Because, Emma, you're not just dealing with Ethan anymore. You're dealing with his past. And that past will catch up to both of you. You're already in danger. My mind raced. Danger? What kind of danger? And why hadn't Ethan told me? Why was he keeping this from me? The room spun as I tried to process everything. Before I could speak, Ethan's mother turned and walked toward the door. I'm sorry, Emma, she said, her voice barely audible. But this is bigger than you realize. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding. What was I supposed to do now? My head was spinning. Ethan's mother had just left, leaving me with more questions than answers. What did she mean by danger? What was Ethan hiding? My mind raced as I paced around my apartment, trying to make sense of everything. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the truth was slipping further away from me. I needed to confront Ethan. There was no other choice. I grabbed my phone and called him. The ringing felt endless, and just when I thought he wouldn't pick up, his voice came through. Emma, he said, sounding tired, like he knew what this was about. We need to talk, I said, my voice hard. I couldn't hold back anymore. I need to know the truth, Ethan. Everything. About you. About your family. I heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end, followed by silence. Emma, no. Don't say anything, I interrupted, my frustration growing. Just tell me everything. I can't keep doing this. I can't live with the lies. Another long pause. I'll come over, he finally said. I'll be there in an hour. I hung up without another word, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew this was it. This was the moment when everything would either fall apart or finally come together. I had to be strong, but I wasn't sure I could be. The next hour dragged on like a lifetime. I stared out the window, watching the world go by, trying to steady my nerves. When the doorbell finally rang, I felt my stomach twist. This was it. Ethan stood in front of me, looking like he was carrying the weight of the world. "Emma," he said softly, his eyes searching mine. "We need to talk." I nodded, unable to speak. What was he going to say? Was this the truth I'd been waiting for, or another lie? The door closed behind Ethan, the weight of his presence settling heavily in the room. He stood there, his hands in his pockets, eyes searching mine for something, perhaps understanding, perhaps forgiveness. I felt my heart beating faster, the anticipation of whatever was about to be said suffocating me. "Emma," he said, his voice quieter than before, "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, let me explain." I shook my head, refusing to let him off that easily. "You think an explanation is going to fix everything? You've lied to me, Ethan. You've kept things from me. This isn't just about the baby anymore. It's about everything you've kept hidden." His face tightened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes. "I wasn't hiding anything from you. I was trying to protect you. From my family, from everything that's been going on." "Protect me?" I snapped, my voice trembling with anger. "You call that protection? You're not protecting me, Ethan. You're controlling me, keeping me in the dark. I can't do this anymore." He stepped forward, reaching for my hand, but I pulled it away. "You have to listen to me," he said, his voice desperate now. "You don't understand the full picture. There's so much more you need to know." I stared at him, waiting for him to say something that would make sense, something that would justify the mess he had created. "What do I need to know, Ethan? What is it that you're not telling me?" His silence only made the tension worse. "I never wanted you to be involved in this," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But now that you are, I don't know how to fix it." The words hung in the air between us, thick with unresolved pain. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. I looked down, heart sinking when I saw the name. "Mom." "What now?" My phone buzzed again, and I glanced down to see my mother's name. My heart sank. What now? I couldn't take another bombshell, not today. I had just confronted Ethan about his secrets, and now my mother was adding more fuel to the fire. I swiped the screen, my hands shaking. "Emma, you need to come over now. It's about the baby." The message was short, urgent. The weight of it pulled me in. I couldn't ignore it. I had no choice but to go. I told Ethan I needed to leave, his face a mix of frustration and concern. "Emma, don't walk away from this," he pleaded, but I was already heading for the door. "I'm not walking away. I just need answers." I didn't even wait for him to respond. The questions were growing, one on top of another, threatening to swallow me whole. When I arrived at my mother's house, she was waiting for me at the kitchen table, looking pale and anxious. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She motioned for me to sit, her hands trembling as she poured me a glass of water. "There's something you need to know, Emma. Something I should have told you a long time ago." The way she said it made my stomach tighten with dread. "What?" I said, leaning forward, my body tense. "Your father, he's not the only one involved," she said, her eyes not meeting mine. I felt the room spinning, her words barely sinking in. "What do you mean?" I demanded, my voice rising. She sighed, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the truth was too much to carry. "Ethan's father, he's been involved too." I froze, my breath catching in my throat. "What? What does that mean for the baby?" I whispered, barely able to form the question. Her eyes met mine, and the answer was already written in her face. "Everything," she said softly, "everything is connected, Emma. You need to be prepared." My heart raced. What had I gotten myself into? My mind was reeling as I processed my mother's words. Ethan's father? This was getting worse by the minute. I could barely breathe. I felt trapped, suffocated by all these secrets, lies, and betrayals. What had I gotten myself into? How is this possible? I asked, barely above a whisper. My mother's face was pale, her eyes filled with regret. Ethan's father has been a part of this from the very beginning. It's all connected. The baby, Ethan, your father, none of it is simple. I could feel my pulse in my throat. You've known this whole time? I whispered, my voice breaking with disbelief. I didn't know how to tell you, Emma. I didn't want you to hate me, but now, everything is falling apart. I took a step back, trying to steady myself. The room felt too small, too hot. What do you mean, everything's falling apart? I demanded, the urgency in my voice rising. She looked at me, her eyes full of sorrow. Ethan has been protecting you, but now, he's trapped. His family, your father, they're all intertwined in this. The baby isn't just a symbol of your future with Ethan. It's a symbol of everything his family has been trying to control. My head spun. I could barely comprehend what she was saying. So, it's not just the baby? It's everything? I whispered, the realization dawning on me. It's everything, she confirmed. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. What am I supposed to do now? I asked, the desperation in my voice cutting through the tension. She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could speak, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Ethan. We need to talk. I'm coming over. My heart skipped a beat. Was this finally the moment when everything came to light? What was he going to say? My phone buzzed again, the familiar name flashing on the screen. Ethan. I didn't know if I could face him right now, not after everything. But I had no choice. He was coming over, and I needed to know what was really going on. I had been avoiding this moment for too long. I took a deep breath and swiped to answer, trying to steady my racing heart. Emma, he said, his voice soft but urgent. We need to talk. I'm almost there. I swallowed hard. I know, I said, my voice a little shakier than I intended. I'll be waiting. I hung up and walked to the window, staring outside, not really seeing anything. My thoughts were a jumbled mess. What did he know? What had he been hiding? And more importantly, what was I going to do when he showed up? I wasn't sure if I could keep my emotions in check any longer. His presence was overwhelming, and the idea of him walking through that door filled me with equal parts dread and yearning. A knock on the door jolted me out of my thoughts. I turned, my heart pounding. He was here. I walked over, my steps slow, my hands shaking as I reached for the door. When I opened it, Ethan stood there, looking exhausted but determined. Emma, he said, his eyes meeting mine with a mix of guilt and hope. Can we talk? I nodded, stepping aside to let him in. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, neither of us knowing where to begin. I don't even know where to start, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. You've been hiding so much from me, Ethan. I need the truth. All of it. Ethan looked down, taking a deep breath. I'm sorry, he said, his voice heavy with regret. I never wanted to hurt you. But as he spoke, I felt a chill run down my spine. His words felt like a warning. The truth is going to change everything, Emma. And with those words, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The room felt smaller the longer we stood there in silence. Ethan's eyes were fixed on me, as if he were trying to find a way to explain everything he hadn't yet told me. My heart pounded in my chest, the words I'd been waiting for swirling in my mind but refusing to leave my lips. Emma, he said quietly, there's so much you don't know. Things I've been trying to protect you from, but it's gotten to a point where I can't hide it anymore. I shook my head, my throat tightening. I don't want your protection, Ethan. I want the truth. The pain in my chest was sharp, but I couldn't let it stop me. What are you hiding from me? What are you so afraid I'll find out? Ethan ran a hand through his hair, frustration mixing with guilt. I'm not afraid of you finding out. I'm afraid of what it'll do to us once you do. I could feel the weight of his words, but I wasn't sure I was ready for the truth. The air between us felt heavy with the unsaid. I need to know, Ethan. I can't keep going around in circles with you. He took a deep breath, stepping closer, his gaze never leaving mine. The baby, he started, his voice barely above a whisper, it's not just about us. It's about my family. It's about what they've done, and the decisions they've made for both of us. I felt my pulse quicken, my mind racing. What does that mean? What did they do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's eyes flashed with something I couldn't place. Fear, maybe? Regret? It means that they've always known about you, about the baby. They've been controlling everything from the beginning, and he stopped suddenly, his face tense. And I can't let them control you anymore. I won't let them do that to us. I stood frozen, processing what he'd just said. The truth was right there, but it felt like a weight I wasn't sure I could carry. Before I could speak, the doorbell rang. I turned sharply, my heart in my throat. Who was at the door now? The doorbell rang again, the sound jolting me from the confusion swirling in my mind. I turned toward the door, my heart racing. Who else could it be? Ethan stood behind me, his expression unreadable. I'll get it, I said quickly, moving toward the door, needing to put space between us. I opened it, my breath caught in my throat as I saw who was standing on the other side. It was Ethan's father. The man who had been nothing but a shadow in my life, a presence I had always known but never understood. His eyes locked with mine, cold and calculating, as though this moment had been coming for a long time. We need to talk, he said, his voice low and commanding. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I didn't back away. What do you want? I asked, trying to steady my breath. He didn't answer right away, instead stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. This has gone on long enough, Emma, he said, his gaze flicking to Ethan who had moved to stand beside me. There are things you need to understand. Things you've been kept in the dark about. Ethan's father's words hit me harder than I expected, each one slicing through the tension like a blade. I don't want any more secrets, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need the truth. Now. He looked at Ethan, a quiet exchange passing between them before he turned back to me. Ethan has been trying to protect you, but in doing so, he's only made things worse. The truth is, you've been caught in the middle of a game much bigger than you realize. My heart pounded as I processed his words. I didn't want to hear this. I didn't want to believe that everything I thought I knew was a lie. What game? I demanded, my voice shaking with both fear and anger. Ethan's father took a step closer, his voice cold and steady. The game that will decide everything, for you, for Ethan, and for the baby. My breath caught in my throat. What had I just gotten myself into? The weight of Ethan's father's words still hung heavy in the air, pressing down on me with a suffocating force. I could feel my body tense, my heart pounding, as I tried to make sense of what he had just said. What game? I whispered, my voice barely audible, as if saying it too loudly might make the truth even harder to swallow. Ethan stood beside me, his expression unreadable. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the unspoken pain, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the truth. Ethan's father didn't hesitate. The game that has been controlling all of you, your family, Ethan's family, the baby, it's all tied up in this mess, he said, his voice steady and cold. I turned to Ethan, searching his face for any sign of what he was thinking, but he didn't look at me. He looked down, his jaw tight. You knew about this? I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he rubbed his forehead, clearly struggling with the weight of the situation. I didn't want you involved in any of this, Ethan finally said, his voice strained. But it's too late now. You're already in the middle of it. The pain in his words hit me harder than I expected. He was right. Everything I thought I understood about our relationship had been shattered. And now, it seemed like I was caught in something far bigger than just a complicated love story. This isn't just about us anymore, I said, barely able to speak. It's about everything. Ethan looked at me then, and for the first time, I saw the desperation in his eyes. Emma, please. I'm trying to fix this. I'm trying to keep you safe. But his words didn't reach me. The damage had already been done. I didn't know if I could trust him again, or if I could trust anyone in this twisted mess. Just as the silence between us became unbearable, my phone buzzed. Another message. This time from my mother. You're in more danger than you think. I know who's behind all of this. My heart skipped a beat. What had I gotten myself into now? The silence was deafening as Ethan and I stood in front of each other. The weight of everything that had been said, everything that had happened, pressed down on me, but something inside me shifted. I didn't know if I was ready to forgive him, but I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't keep living in the shadows of the past. I don't know if I can ever trust you the way I did, I said quietly, my voice strained with the remnants of the anger and hurt I'd been carrying. Ethan's face tightened, but he nodded, accepting my words without protest. I don't deserve your trust, Emma. I know that. But I'll do whatever it takes to earn it back. His words hung in the air between us, heavy with sincerity. It wasn't the grand gesture I had imagined, but it was enough. I didn't need him to fix everything, or to have all the answers. I just needed him to show me that he was willing to fight for us. I looked at him for a long moment, weighing my options. The truth was, I still loved him. Despite everything, despite the lies, the secrets, the pain, I still wanted him in my life. But I couldn't keep going in circles. I needed something real, something honest. I'm not saying it's easy, I said, my voice shaking. But I'm willing to try. For us. Ethan's eyes softened, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw the man I had fallen in love with. We'll take it one day at a time, he said, his voice low and steady. We stood there for a moment, the weight of the world lifting just a little. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, I felt like I was moving forward. Together. And that was enough, for now. As I looked into his eyes, I felt a new sense of peace, the kind I hadn't felt in months. The kind that came from knowing that, despite everything, we were still here, still fighting. And as we walked out of the room, hand in hand, I realized that maybe, just maybe, we could make it work after all.